Welcome to Ecu Flash Training Part 10. In this video, we're going to take a look at working with our cranking, post-start, and warm-up enrichment fuel in our Evo 8 and Evo 9 ECUs. We're going to be finding that we have a multitude of tables that we have to program and work with, and understanding what table does what function when we're trying to get our engine to fire off cold or fire off warm, maintain a stable idle after it's fired off, and then come down into normal idle speed and conditions. There's going to be a lot of things to cover here, so let's jump into our video so we can check this out.
Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at our cranking fuel, post-start fuel, and warm-up enrichment in our Evo 8 and Evo 9 ECUs. Now what I have open here under Open ROM Documents, there's going to be several different files we have to take a look at. Our 9417 files associated with an Evo 8. We also have our 8859 files that's associated with an Evo 9. Now within the Evo 9 family, I have two different files here to open and take a look at. We have our 3D VE speed density style file and our mass airflow. And the reason why I have essentially all these files open here is there's going to be differences in our tables. We're specifically looking at our cranking fuel, our post-start fuel, and our warm-up enrichment. We're going to find there is going to be some discrepancies here and differences that I want to just illustrate and point out. There's also going to be some fundamental differences in the way it's going to be calculating our base injector pulse width under cranking between our speed density operation and our mass airflow that I want to just quickly point out as well. So let's talk about that first. Let's just get that out of the way so we understand when we're cranking where the injector pulse width is coming from, and then we can look at the differences between our Evo 8 and our Evo 9 examples. Essentially we'll find that the speed density and the math-based tables are the same. They're not going to really differ, but the Evo 8 and Evo 9 files just in general, whether mass airflow or speed density for an Evo 8 or the speed density mass airflow for Evo 9, there are going to be differences in these tables, and I just want to just go through those. So let's just go in here and talk about our differences real quick between our core calculations that are going on. So in a mass airflow based calibration, we're going to have our mass airflow sensor. It's going to be registering a certain amount of air mass entering the motor, or volume I should say, entering the motor, and then we'll have our intake air temp and our baro correction modifying the density portion so that we get an actual air mass registration. Under cranking, it's going to have really low airflow coming into the engine. If we move down in here into our mass airflow section, we have our MAF tuning. We have our MAF compensation and MAF scaling. Now within these two tables here, we're going to find that under cranking conditions, we're typically here under the 1900 Hertz value. So under our compensation, this is where some of the compensation is coming from, and then in the scaling and load here for the MAF scaling, we're going to be associating here with this value. So 19 Hertz is going to be where it essentially turns the frequency reading into some kind of an airflow reading. So it knows what's going on, and then it's going to be looking at our other correction modifiers here, the baro and intake air temp, correcting for the density, and then we'll have an air mass registration. So I wanted to point out that these are where it actually starts to calculate its base injector pulse width from as far as our air mass registration. Now under cranking, we are in open loop. We're not going to be in closed loop. The front oxygen sensor is not going to be accurate. It doesn't have any combustion yet. It can't look at anything from the sensor as far as feeding back into the ECU. We have to wait to allow it to start to work and go into closed loop. So there's going to be a period of time when we crank the engine over, we start to fire it off, and it runs for the first 20, 30, maybe even a minute before it actually goes into closed loop, where we'll see our short and long-term trims start to populate and move around. So when it's in open loop, we're going to simply register the amount of air mass. So we have our air mass detection here from our MAF sensor. We also have our target air fuel table. So in this table here, under the engine load, we're going to find that between 90 to 100, we can see this is going to be based here on KPA. This value here is going to be where it sources its target air fuel from. So we know what the air mass is going to be by all these equations and calculations from that 1900 Hertz under cranking specifically. We know what the target air fuel is. So if we know the air mass, we know what the target air fuel is. We'll convert that into a fuel mass, and then we'll request what the injector pulse width is going to be as it goes through all of our calculations here. We went over all the injector details of programming, so you should understand what that's going to be. So we're going to have a base injector pulse width that we're going to be starting with under cranking conditions. Now, let's take a look at our speed density here so we can just quickly go through this. In our speed density mode.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.